Hi, welcome. And we are going to talk about toxic work environment today. If you're new here, my name is Nicole Haugen, and I am a life coach and I coach Catholic women who work in healthcare. So I had somebody message me a couple weeks ago on a topic about gossiping in the workplace. And so in healthcare, it's mostly women that we work with, and it can become kind of gossipy, a place to just talk about our husbands or to bash them, to complain about other people, maybe our neighbors, our kids, other coworkers. So I wanted to do a video on that. So I'm going to set up the situation or the circumstance. And as always, we put everything into a category of it's either a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result. So the circumstance is this woman is PRN status. She works in surgery. And so when she's with her coworkers, they're working hours together at a time because in surgery, right? Like surgeries take hours. And so you're literally right beside each other for multiple hours. What else do you talk about, right? So there's tends to be a lot of gossiping and complain about husband and kids. And she's like, when does it cross the line? And how to maintain your faith with and to communicate with your coworkers, to have a relationship, but not to cross that line into gossiping. So that's what we're going to start with, and we're going to break it down. We'll pull out the circumstances, which are the facts of the situation. So the facts are she works PRN in surgery. And as PRN, that can vary from time to time, week to week. So she works in surgery. So she's with her coworkers for hours on end, probably at least, maybe I would say 3 to 4 hours, probably up to maybe 8 hours. I'm not sure what her shifts are, what kind of surgery she gets pulled into. And then a fact is coworkers talk, right? People talk. We're human. So our thought that we might have about this is they're gossiping, or maybe even they're going to gossip. And you might feel annoyed, frustrated, or dread. Okay. What I feel the most, we want to pick one. What I feel the most is probably dread. I don't like talking gossipy, but I really don't know what to do about it. And I know it's going to happen. So right there, we get the feeling, dread from our thoughts, they're gossiping. Okay. And then we take action of probably either trying to ignore the conversation, or we sit there and as they're talking, we're sit there in our mind and we're thinking about how much they talk about other people. And we're telling the story to ourselves about them. Then we might go home and complain to our husband about them and how much they gossip. And maybe you go to other coworkers that you kind of know or don't really feel comfortable with it either. And you go like, oh my gosh, they're just so gossipy. And then you end up like maybe saying something personal, right? Because when you work with people that close all the time, you end up maybe venting about your husband, right? Something happened that morning, you go and you vent to your coworkers, and then you're also including yourself in the gossiping, and now you feel horrible, and so you look for a dopamine hit, which might be, okay, I'm going to gossip even more, right? Like I'm going to go into, like, also I've already done it, so I might as well go feel good about it. Or you might go and during break, like maybe you're trying not to drink pop, maybe you go get a pop. Or you've tried to quit smoking, but like, oh, that just feels horrible. So we need something to feel good. This dread keeps coming up. And so we go and smoke or overeat. Maybe go home and drink alcohol, which you also, like, maybe you overindulge in that. Okay. And your result is when you're doing all those things, you are gossiping because our thoughts always give us our results. So when you have the thought they are gossiping, you end up gossiping. So first, with that, I just want to say we can't control other people. Okay. I've tried very, very hard to control people in my life and it does not work. And so with that, we can't control other people. We only can control ourselves. And so how do we want to show up? What thoughts do we want to have to show up differently? Okay. So I thought of, same circumstance. You work as a PRN in surgery. You're with your coworkers for hours on end, and coworkers talk, people talk. And you might want to have the thought, their human nature wants them to belong. because that's what our brain is programmed to do. Our brain is programmed to keep us safe. And in order to keep us safe, we think, our primitive brain thinks we have to have a group because there's so many dangers out there, we could die, right? Our primitive brain goes back to like caveman days, doesn't know we're in the 21st century. And it thinks if we don't have a group, we're going to be excluded, we're going to be alone, and we're going to die. Okay, that's how dramatic our brains are. And so what if you just look at them and say, oh yeah, like it's just their human brain. It wants them to belong. And they think by belonging, that means we're going to talk about other people. They're searching for things that we might have in common. They're searching for ways that like both of our husbands maybe didn't put the dishes away last night or never take out the trash unless we ask them to. Okay. So that's just our human nature. We want to find a way to connect to people. We're made for connection. And so when I think that, I just feel compassion. Like, well, of course they think that way. They just want to belong. And then I take the actions. When I have compassion for somebody, I know that setting boundaries is healthy. Okay. And boundaries are only boundaries if you're willing to enforce them. Okay. So, for example, if you want to set a boundary of somebody starting to talk about their husband, bashing their husband, like not just talking like, oh my gosh, I need help, I need some support here, but like really just nitpicking them, belittling them. If you want to set a boundary, just say, please stop talking about your husband that way when I'm around you. Okay, you can't stop them from talking about their husband, but you can set the boundary, or you don't even need to let them know about the boundary. That's another thing about boundaries is you can, if you're in the break room, you can just get up and walk away. Now, if you're in surgery and you can't leave, hopefully you just don't walk out on your patient. If you're in surgery and they start going same old like they do to bash their husband, what are some things that you can have ready to say? Please stop. Maybe you even say like, gosh, that really sounds like difficult. If you want to talk about this later, I'm here for you, but I don't think now is the time and place. Okay, like we can be very compassionate, but just say, no, like ladies, let's not talk about our husbands unless we're actually asking for support for ourselves, ways that we can show up differently. Okay, and this will feel horrible to say something. Okay, I will admit many times in my life, I've not been brave enough to say those things. I've not been brave enough to stand up. I have been in situations where I'll just walk away. Okay. So extremely uncomfortable, awkward. Know that going into it, it's not going to feel good. But neither does showing up for work and feeling dread all the time and questioning, like, really, should I be participating in this? Because it's not good for my faith. Okay. I'm sinning, and therefore, like, it's taking me away from God. Okay. So know that also does not feel good either. So which uncomfortable do you want to choose? Okay. So you can set boundaries, but again, treat them kindly. Okay. Maybe when you see this, like you have such compassion for them that you do say that something along the lines of, wow, that must be really difficult. Like, if you want to talk after work today, I'm here for you. Or if you want to call me tomorrow, I have the day off. Okay. Say something like that where it doesn't have to be rude, right? And then pray for them. When we feel dread, we're not praying. But when we feel compassion, we're praying for those people. I often think of Saint Therese of Lisieux. Like she had some nuns and sisters around her that would complain all the time that they were not great people, right? They were the sisters that nobody else really got along with. And yet Saint Therese would pray for them. She would fast for them. She would sacrifice for them. Okay. And they had no idea. So you can also do that. You can do something where they have no idea and just pray for them. You can get curious on how can I offer suggestions, and they probably are really hurting in their marriage. That's probably why they keep talking about it. What little things can I recognize and see? Be like, hey, if your husband, like, do you want to go to the movie with me? Like, that must have really hurt that your husband didn't want to take you to the movies. Like, hey, that must have really hurt that your husband didn't notice your haircut. Like, I think you look amazing. That's great. Like, gosh, where did you get it done? Okay, just little things. And then think of questions that you can ask or have ready to go to switch the topic. All right. Like this is one I find that people often like to talk about themselves or their interests or their beliefs. Okay. So maybe if they are an avid moviegoer or they like to watch shows on Netflix, and like, oh, hey, like, can you recommend, like, sorry guys, I know this is kind of off topic, but like, I've really been looking for a Netflix show to enjoy with my husband at night. Like, what do you guys recommend? What are some really good ones? And that'll get them going off on different topics and like, probably like, oh, I watched that one. No, that one wasn't great. Like, don't watch that one, right? Like, they'll talk about that instead. Or, hey, like, I'm thinking about having a new hobby of, I want to try sewing. Does anybody here quilt, right? Like, just find different things that you can talk about. Or what's the best vacation you guys have ever been on? Okay, there's a whole bunch. If you go look online, there's so many conversation starter idea, like sentences or questions you can ask that you can just think, have 5 ready for that day. Then maybe the next time, okay, that wasn't quite enough. We ended up running out of things to talk about. Maybe I need 7. Okay. And just, we have the technology, so use it. Okay. And you, as a result, will show up to foster a place of belonging. You will create an environment around you. And yes, if you set some boundaries, it might be a little awkward and uncomfortable. You'll create an environment where like you're willing to just like dive, maybe not necessarily deeper, but you're not bashing other people. You are talking about your hobbies, your interests, you're sharing with each other. It'll be a place of belonging. And if it goes the other way, and if people are super annoyed and they really do want to gossip, maybe then you just need to have a conversation with God and just ask him, like, hey, are you calling me to be here? And if so, I'll keep showing up. I'll keep trying to like foster this relationship with this person because they must be really hurting, right? Like, just like Saint Therese, maybe do a novena to Saint Therese to ask for a rose or a sign. Or maybe God is calling you, like maybe this is the nudge that he's saying, hey, like it is time to leave. This place is toxic and I want you to shine with your talents elsewhere. Okay, but we need to have that conversation with God. We need to ask him about it. And also know that we don't always get a clear yes or no right away. Sometimes it's just wait. Okay. So I coach women one-on-one who work in healthcare, and I would love to coach you deeper on this. I hope you'll book a free discovery call. You can go to www.catholicnursecoach.com and talk to me, bring up all the reasons why this is completely untrue. Maybe it's absolutely true. Maybe you learned just so much from it. You don't have to be Catholic. I love sharing my Catholic faith. So I want people to know that I am Catholic and I'm praying for you, and let's go change our world.